Alright, Nick. Back at it with another reaction video. Today, we're going to react to a video I saw. It came out a few months ago already, so some of you may have seen it already. But I thought it was really interesting and a more serious topic than the Anthill usually does. But that's okay, because, you know, I like to mix it up, as you guys know. Today, let's look at the death penalty video that was done in Japan.
Biggest map.
Now apparently Japan is only the second of like two major industrialized countries that still has the death penalty. One of them is us, obviously, and then the other one is Japan. So no, I was actually wrong. It's less than that. It's only 2 weeks old. And this video is really, really well done. It's a little bit long, so we'll try to keep the pauses to a minimum. And obviously go over and check out HOOG for their video. Really, really well done. And really crazy. So we'll check it out.
Today, most of the developed world has ended the death penalty.
Your mom texted you.
But in 2024, there are still two countries in the OECD that use it. The United States of America and Japan.
It's just a group of like industrialized countries, essentially.
What does it stand for?
But while the U.S.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up
has been
later.
transparent about its ultimate punishment.
Why?
I'm curious. I've just never heard of it, so I'm just curious, you know. Organization for Economic
Cooperation
and Development.
What?
Yeah.
Japan has kept its practices secret for years. It was only in 2010 that the world was finally shown the evil design of Japan's death penalty. July 26, 2022. Tomohiro Kato is sitting in his cell in the Tokyo Detention Center. 14 years ago, he killed 7 people and injured 10.
東京の警察によると、秋生石案での自傷事件で少なくとも7人が死亡し、10人が負傷しました。警察によれば、ある男がトラックで買い物かの群れに突っ込みました。その後、彼はレンタカーから飛び降り、倒した人々を刺し始め、次に恐怖に限った傍観者に注意を向けました。
In 2011, Tomohiro Kato was sentenced to death. Every day he wakes up at 7 a.m. and heads to bed at 9 p.m. in a cell that's the size of about 4 tatami mats.
It looks kind of nice.
He has a sink, a commode, bedding, and a small desk. In Japan, death row inmates can wait decades for an execution. But unlike the US, they wait for a day they never really know is coming. Any random morning, the inmate can be taken to the execution chamber. They're given no more than a few hours' notice. The Japanese state says that this helps with emotional stability,
Honestly, I kind of
that it
love
reduces
that.
the chances of an inmate taking life.
Anyway, what'd you say?
I was just saying that it sounds like a good idea. Instead of give them a date, just let them go on, and then one day it just ran.
You think so? I think it's worse, because then every day you wake up with this fear that it might be your last.
Yeah, I think it's worse, but isn't that also kind of part of the punishment?
Yeah, but like that's pretty fucked.
It's like
you're not trying to be like Jigsaw about it, though.
No, it's like if you I don't know. If you want to bet and you get to slap a friend, and you're just like, I'm gonna slap you at a period of time. You're just like never tell
It's a
them.
little different than a slap, but yeah, sure.
It's the same concept. I didn't say it's the same thing, but like.
Some argue
cool.
it's justice. Their victims weren't given notice either. Others say it's inhumane. For 34 years, a man named Menda Sakai didn't know which day would be his last. In 1983, he was freed. The police officer who arrested him revealed that he had concealed Sakai's alibi that proved he was innocent.
All the people who go after the death penalty, they always use the cases I've noticed of the people who were later found out to be innocent as evidence.
I'm only thinking about Cobra Kai right now, the entire time I watch this.
12,410 mornings with an unjustified fear for execution. In 2014, Iwa Hakamada was also released and given a retrial due to possibly falsified evidence. He was the longest-serving death row inmate on the planet. Hakamada spent more than 45 years in prison, waiting. In the Tokyo Detention Center, Kato sits in his cell.
Is this saying that he was an ex-judge, or that an ex-judge is saying that he's innocent?
I think an ex-judge is saying that.
Yeah.
In the Tokyo Detention
That'd be
Center,
weird if he used to be a judge and then he went around killing people and then he went to jail and then he was turned out to be innocent.
Yeah.
Kato sits in his cell. He's surrounded by objects purposely made rounder, so that he can't finish off his sentence
No Jeffrey
earlier than
Epsteining in
expected.
here.
On July 26,
Smart, honestly.
2022, after 14 years of waiting, he hears more noises than usual outside of his door. Today, the majority of the developed world has outlawed the death penalty, but Japan is strange. This book explains why.
It's a
Even though
tiny
it's still
book.
legal in the US, it's debatable. The United States is a federal, divided country. Many states have phased out the death penalty entirely. Japan, on the other hand, is a centralized state where polls have shown that the public supports it with a clear majority. The US's death penalty is intimately connected with its history of racial discrimination and enslavement.
See, I think that's such a stupid argument to bring up. I don't think that modern day death penalty has anything to do with lynchings that happened in 1883. Like, what is this statistic?
Yeah.
What does this factoid have to do with anything?
I don't really get it, to be honest.
And then, like, this part here, executions of black defendants. Yeah, like, black people were people were death penalty people in the years of 1972 and 2020. Like, what's your point?
I can't say any of this makes
Like,
sense.
they're a part of the thing. Yeah. The biggest thing that I've seen is that some people say that like 49% of the death penalty inmates are African American, and it's like, yeah, but like
That sounds
we
like
don't
less than
put we
half.
don't put people on death row based on skin color. Based on the proportion of skin color to the population. We never are like, oh, there's 13% black people in the country, so let's make sure that it never exceeds 13% on the death row, because then it would be racist, right? If it gets to 15, it's too many. Or the Asian or Hispanic or like white, we just do it based on crime, you know?
Yeah.
The bigger thing that I've seen is wealth inequality. Because if you're wealthy, then you can hire a top-notch lawyer who can get you off of the death penalty, and then you just do life in prison or whatever. But if you're not wealthy, then you have to go to the public defendants, who are usually not as good, and then they typically can't get you to, they can't keep you off death row, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, the whole legal
Japan is
system.
ethnically homogenous and has less inequality. The fall of an authoritarian leader like Hitler, Mussolini, Salazar, and Franco all led to the abolition of the death penalty in their respective countries. Japan's authoritarian state also fell, but the death penalty remained. In Austria, Great Britain, and France, the election of a left-wing government all led to the abolition of capital punishment. In 2009, Japan elected the center-left Democratic Party of Japan. The death penalty stayed.
I will say this too really quickly, is that Japan is probably one of the most culturally unique countries on the planet.
Yeah, probably.
Like, it's the fact that they've been an island, but then you could say, okay, what about New Zealand or Australia or whatever? I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that they've been an island and they've been so homogenous, but yeah, they've got some things that even up to today they've held on to from hundreds of years ago, like suicidality, for example. They have a huge culture of suicide over there, and it's just unique. Like, no other country is like that. It's just Japan. So that's another thing to point out real
Yeah.
quickly.
But what makes Japan's situation even stranger is how uniquely brutal it is. Its homicide rate is a fraction of that found in the US, and it's lower than all the European countries which have abolished the death penalty. Nevertheless, the percentage of murder offenders sentenced to death in Japan and the US are around the same. In 2018, 15 Japanese prisoners were killed, with about 116 inmates on death row. That's 10 less than the US's 25, which had more than 10 times the amount of inmates on death row. 7 of the 15 executions were part of the AUM Shinriko doomsday cult. The Japanese state sometimes executes in batches. All 7 were killed on the same morning. While the US explicitly treats the death penalty differently from other criminal sentencing, in Japan it's treated like other criminal punishments. To be put to death in the US, you must go through a bifurcated trial system. There is a criminal trial for determining guilt or innocence, which requires unanimity. After, if determined to be guilty, it goes to another trial for deciding the punishment. Here, you must receive, again, a unanimous agreement from the jury. Then, the judge can serve you the death penalty. Florida and Alabama are the only exceptions. But these
Hell
two
yeah. In the great state of Florida.
states are outliers in the US context, and they still require a supermajority. In Japan, it's different. Under the Seiban system, citizens act like judges. They sit alongside professional ones to determine both the verdict and the sentence of a crime. All that is required for the death penalty is a majority. In theory, 5 judges on the panel can believe the defendant is guilty and deserves the death penalty, while the other 4 can believe the defendant is innocent and deserves no punishment whatsoever. With this close of a vote, the defendant can be sentenced to death.
Being able to have something to always protect myself with this Byrna allows me to have that peace of mind no matter where we're really at.
It provides you with peace of mind.
Yeah.
Not only that you
In Japan, there are 7 detention centers that execute the death penalty. It's the justice minister who decides when it will take place. 5 days after he or she signs the warrant, the prisoner is put to death. These are usually signed right before political recess, moments where media coverage is limited. The executions are not made clear to the family members and lawyers of the inmates. They only learn after it's taken place. Kato is brought into a prayer room. Here he is read his last rites by a spiritual advisor. He is given time to write a will and maybe to consume some snacks or even smoke a cigarette. Afterwards, he's taken into another small room with an altar. If they're Buddhist, it will be a figure of the Buddha. If they're one of the few Christians in the country, a crucifix.
There's also Shinto. It's another religion in Japan.
Well,
Actually, when I was talking to you, which I'm still interested in doing potentially next year, about the Japanese trip,
Yeah.
a lot of the hotspots that I was looking at were particularly like religious hotspots, like Shinto hotspots, and yeah, I mean it's a cool country, and you don't realize how vast it is until you kind of drill down into the map and see like, oh shit, like thankfully it's very infrastructurally advanced, so you can get from like one end to the other, but there are so many like little separate islands off the main one. It's actually a lot to get through if you wanted to visit the
I
whole
definitely
thing.
want to do Asia because like I think Korea would be cool, like Vietnam would be cool, China would be cool,
Right.
Japan would be cool. There's so much culture there. It's like a lot of right-on spots.
Oh, it would be a sick trip for sure.
In this room, the execution order is officially read out by the prison warden. The last thing Kato sees are the blue curtains covering the next room. The guards wrap a bleached white blindfold around his eyes, throw a black hood over his head, handcuff his hands behind his back, and tie his knees together. He is taken to the next and final room. In the US, lethal injection is the primary method of executing the death penalty. In Japan, hanging is the only method. At the center of the
Interesting.
room are 2 red squares. An inmate is made to stand in the center. Beneath is a trap door connected to an adjacent room. When the inmate is in place, 3 officers enter this room. They do not see the prisoner. What they see instead are 3 identical buttons. 2 do nothing, but the third opens the trap door. The 3 officers do not know which one is the kill switch. This divides the responsibility between all 3. It's also been mentioned that there is a delayed circuit to hide who pressed the kill button if they were pressed at different times, but I could not find a good source to confirm this. For their service, all 3 officers received 20,000 yen, about $180 each. Watching the execution
Nice.
are a few officials: the head of the detention center, a medical officer, and the prosecutors. The medical officer waits for 5 minutes until confirming the death. After the body is cleaned, the families are notified. The body will be cremated, unless the family specifies otherwise. In the case of some high-profile inmates, the ashes are kept in state custody. It was only in 2007 that the Japanese government even released the names of those put to death.
Wow.
Currently, there are 106 inmates awaiting their execution in Japan. The last person sentenced to death row killed 36 people in an arson attack. Tomohiro Kato was the last person executed in the country. I only felt comfortable putting this video in production after it was confirmed that a very specific organization would sponsor it. If topics like this one make you feel eager for positive change in the world, you should check out 80,000 Hours. It's an independent nonprofit that understands that your time is limited, and it wants to help you find a career with more positive impact. It helps you identify the most pressing problems, which careers make a difference on those problems, and how you personally might be able to make the most difference. You can access their completely free career guide for practical research-driven advice on how to plan a career that's fulfilling and meaningful. Check out their free career guide at 80,000hours.org.
Hey bro, I think we found a job for you.
80,000
If you're a
more?
web designer, here are 4 Wix Studio features
Something that can help you
gotta
get a
know.
job. Alright, so that was The Evil Design of Japan's Death Penalty by Hoog, or H-O-O-G, whatever he prefers. Yeah, bro, what did you think?
I thought it was interesting. I don't know. There's not much else to say.
First off, I want to say very good. Clearly, the guy put a lot of effort into that video. That does not just happen overnight. That's a lot of effort and a lot of time.
No, the guy did
and a lot of
good
research.
job. Yeah, he knew what he was saying.
And I don't know if he hired an illustrator or if he did that himself, a graphic designer, but the designs I thought were really, really good. I liked them a lot.
They were, yeah.
But yeah, did you have any idea how different our two systems were before watching this?
Not really. I mean, I kind of assumed, but I didn't know the in and outs of both.
Did you know that they only did hangings over there?
No.
That was a little shocking. You would, I guess the original intent obviously was that the lethal injection would be a lot more humane, but apparently there's been a lot of botched lethal injections.
Yeah.
Where like the person is still like feeling things, but they just can't speak, so they're like in agonizing pain and stuff when it's happening. And like a lot of things, I mean, personally, I think that probably the best way to do it is just firing squad.
I was just say firing squad.
I think
sure.
firing squad is just the best way to do it.
Hanging's gotta hurt, bro. Like you're on there for like 2 minutes before you die or some shit like that.
So actually, the thing about hangings is that it's not the suffocation that kills you. It's actually the quick drop, and then it's supposed to snap your neck, and that's actually what kills you. So it's actually not the suffocation that kills you.
That's probably good.
That's the difference between a hanging and a lynching. A lynching is when you just pull it over a tree, and then you give it some, you kill the slack or whatever, and then you nail it down. And so the person can barely like touch their tippy toes on the ground, almost like you're trying to stand up and like keep your head above water. And it's the same concept, and then they slowly die. If you saw 12 Years a Slave, they actually did a lynching scene.
I did not.
In that movie. But the difference between that and then hanging is that hanging is just supposed to be like the door opens up underneath you and then you die. Actually, I think the guillotine is actually one of the best ways
Probably.
too. I've heard that too.
Instant death, yeah.
But no, yeah, I think firing squad has to be if you just had to replace everything with that. And then the reason that I think that they got rid of the firing squad, from my understanding, is that it was too traumatizing to the wardens to have to kill people. And the way that they did it is that there would be like 6 guys in a row, and they would each have 5 of them would have a blank, and 1 of them would have the actual bullet. So they thought like a similar thing to like everybody pressing the button, but only one being the right button. They're trying to like separate blame so nobody can like think that the death is on their conscience. But I have to imagine that you can find some sociopaths out there that wouldn't mind, going in with a gun and just shooting somebody.
Easily,
like,
bro.
it's really hard for me to believe. I mean, obviously, neither of us have ever killed anybody. We've only done it in video games and stuff. So maybe we're a little more desensitized. Right. Maybe we're a little more desensitized because of that. But I've really got to imagine that that can't be the fucking thing. That everybody who you tried to be the prison warden and executioner was just like, I'm too, traumatized. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah,
I just don't believe that.
I feel like most cops would not do that. They'd not be traumatized.
You couldn't do a cop. You'd have to do.
It's kind of their whole job.
You'd have to do some kind of like, either like a SWAT team guy or some sort of CIA person.
But yeah, that's their whole job. Then why would they be traumatized by that?
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you'd have to get somebody who's like that. You couldn't just have like a prison guard and then give him a gun and have him do that. That would be maybe something he didn't feel like he signed up for, type of thing. But a lot of high level CIA officers and stuff, they wouldn't care about that.
Yeah.
Like, do you think James Bond would give a shit if he had to do that?
Probably not.
I mean, obviously you got to pay him more than, what was it, like $180 or something like that. That was horrible. That was the real crime that I saw.
There might be a lot of money there. I don't know.
180 US. That's
maybe. I don't know what's average in Tokyo or Japan.
Okay, but actual take, it sounds like it's a pretty fucked dystopic system. They should make it a little bit more public and what's like, you know what, before we leave, thoughts on the death penalty just in general?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
As long as, do you think nothing's wrong with it in its current form, or do you think that you would make it more strict, less strict?
I think in the current form, there's nothing wrong with that.
Uh-huh. Well, right now in the U.S., only one crime you can get the death penalty for. Did you know that?
No.
First degree murder. That's the only crime.
But that makes sense.
You could rape 100 children, 100 deaf-blind children. It wouldn't matter. It would be like, all right, you're going to go to jail for life, but they couldn't kill you. You could fucking, blow up 100 people's legs. It wouldn't matter. You wouldn't get the death penalty for it. It's only first degree murder. That part, I think I would change. I think I would make it so that some horrendous crimes against humanity could also get it too.
Yeah, I think any violent crime should be worthy.
And another thing too that's always I found weird is you can get sentenced in 1996 and still be alive today and be on death row for that long. It's really weird how long of a lead time they have on it. And I'm sure somebody in the comments who's a former prosecutor or whatever can explain like, oh, we need that because we need to do all this. Really? 20 years of paperwork? Like, I feel like the jury and the sentencing and stuff, that should be what it is. And then, if you're sentenced to death, then it's got to be within the next, 5 years, right? Some of these people are in death row for 20 years. How did that happen?
Yeah, I would love to see the logic, because I've definitely heard of someone being on there for 45 years, 35 years, 25 years.
Just crazy. All right, well, that was Japan and their death penalty. Oh, you know what else I just thought about really quickly? The anime. The anime might have done this to them.
The anime porn?
No, the violent anime. This might have been part of the cause. Because think about how violent those animes are and how just horrifically gory they are. It might have desensitized the whole country. Because at one point he said that the public opinion polls showed pretty majority support for it. I think it might be the anime because they're pretty desensitized at this point.
Yeah, it's a lot of porn.
No, I meant the gore, but yeah. All right.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of porn.
All right, that was that.